The story begins with strange things falling from the sky. Along with that came some very peculiar objects from another world. And on the same night, everyone gained superpowers. The world turned into chaos, ruled by the new powerful beings. And in the middle of all that mess was Han, our beloved protagonist. He was just a regular guy who dreamed of a life full of waifus, just like you. But no one expected that. Along with the items, mysterious women would also appear. No one knew where they came from, but they all had the same goal: to capture our protag, for some unknown reason. But to him, that didn't matter. What really mattered was that, if one of them happened to knock on his door, they better be ready, if you know what I mean. He always wanted female attention, so he wasn't going to waste this chance. Han actually hoped they would keep showing up, because to him, that's how he would save the world and fulfill his nerd dream of having several waifus and forming a harem. Meanwhile, a strange game called Post-Apocalyptic started trending on the internet. Overnight, the game became a craze among gamers. Everyone was addicted, but no one knew who created it. It seemed to come out of nowhere, like magic. Han, of course, didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to play and relax, drinking his soda and cuddling with his waifus. But that was just in his dream. Experts warned that the game could be dangerous, with no control or supervision. It sounded like one of those news reports on TV telling parents not to let their kids play video games. They said it might be a scam and told everyone to uninstall it. But Han didn't care about those warnings. He just wanted to enjoy the moment. Even tired, he couldn't sleep, because out of nowhere, he heard someone calling him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a beautiful girl sitting on top of him. The girl smiled, saying she would take care of everything. Our hero thought he was dreaming, of course, right? But then he felt a strange pain, like a carnivorous plant had bitten him. Scared, the big guy raised his hands and realized he was touching something unusual. Only then did he notice what was happening on his lap. Even though it was something he always wanted, our hero panicked and pushed the girl away. Of course, right? He even asked who she was, not understanding anything. The girl apologized and said she had to interrupt the fun. She explained that she was there to shoot an addict from a shady financial group, and she also apologized for touching his body without permission. Han was confused, not understanding a single word she was saying. But before they could keep talking, something outside the window caught their attention. A huge werewolf, immune to everything, suddenly invaded the room. However, there was no time to react before it was swallowed by an explosion of fire. Han just stood there, unsure if he should say thanks or run away in panic. The girl, whose name was Ren, appeared through the smoke. She said that as long as she was there, no one could touch her big guy. Through the hole Ren made in the wall, it was clear that more werewolves were approaching. Without hesitation, the girl jumped out the window to face the beasts. Before disappearing, she said she would return as soon as she finished the job. Downstairs, an insane fight full of powers began. Meanwhile, Han finally had a moment to breathe and try to understand everything that was happening. That's when a TV turned on by itself, showing a cute face saying she never imagined the game would cross into another dimension. This supposed developer claimed things were going to get even more intense and asked if Han was ready. Without thinking much, he grabbed a chair and tried to smash the TV, but the device dodged and introduced itself, saying its name was Wang Sen. She was the most powerful system ever made. She also said the game was just training, and she had only used a small part of her power to create it all. Our hero, of course, asked if everything happening out there was her fault, and Wang Sen confirmed it, saying just playing on a phone was too boring, so she decided to unlock the real potential of her system. After 10,086 attempts, the system managed to break the dimensional wall and connect both worlds. Han then tried to understand, right? Why was he the target of all this? Wang explained that, when it came time to choose the game's avatar, she found Han's picture on the internet. So because of that, all the game characters thought he was the savior. Since our hero couldn't enter the game world, the characters started coming to him. They want to get Han's seed and create a savior for the other world. If you know what that seed really means, right? Han got emotional with tears in his eyes and asked how often these girls would show up. Wang said that suddenly, several girls could appear, and wasting no time, Han started warming up for dual cultivation practice. But the system killed the mood and warned that they only needed one seed, and that was enough. If they tried more, they would eliminate him. The vibe changed completely. Han, who was super hyped for dual cultivation, now started packing his bags. He said he was going to take advantage of the chaos outside to escape, but Wang warned that running away wouldn't help much. Outside, wormholes began to open in the sky, marking the start of the first invasion. From the streets, people looked at the sky without understanding, scared and curious. Han was confused too, and asked what those light fish were. The system explained that the game had broken the dimensional wall, and now everything from the other world could come here. From now on, Han wouldn't need a phone to play anymore. since his life had turned into a game. Obviously, he thinks this is too crazy and realizes that if the world wanted to find him, there would be nowhere left to run. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from the ground floor. It's the girl, completely taken over by a level 3 Wolf King. Desperate, our protagonist asks the system for help. He says that, as the savior, he can't die because of a giant dog. Then Wang Sen replies that he can earn points by making people feel good. With those points, he could get almost anything inside the game. Han gets suspicious, right? What's this business about making people feel good? Even so, the system gives him 30 points for another mission he had completed earlier. With the points, Han can choose a blue card for equipment, gold for medical items, or a special ability. He picks a skill and gets the Flaming Punch, which is cow level, and boosts damage to 300 for 5 minutes. He also receives equipment to activate this ability. The problem is that the device is Earth type, and it doesn't match the new firepower at all. Even so, it would have to do somehow. Ruin activates his ability, and a hot, intense energy starts to come out of his body. Meanwhile, Ren is being humiliated by this Wolf King. Most of her clothes were already torn, and she felt she was really close to the end. Before being eliminated, she apologizes to her father for failing the mission. She just wanted to return his affection in another life. But just in time, a burst of fire explodes in the middle of the battle. From inside it, Han appears like a true hero. With just one punch, he sends the Wolf King flying. Ren falls completely in love with the savior who appeared out of nowhere to rescue her. Even with the leader defeated, several smaller werewolves charge forward. Ren yells for the young master to be careful, but Han, already confident, says he doesn't have time to play with these puppies. He curses and easily knocks them all down. Without wasting time, he runs to finish off the Wolf King for good. The monster even tries to fight back, but it's destroyed without any chance. This shows the game's mechanics. When there's total control, the attribute bonus didn't even matter that much. With the Wolf King's defeat, Han ends up receiving 50 points from the system. Looking closer, he sees that he now has access to the attribute panel, just like those system manuals we follow. Back in the room, he tries to stay safe. Wang appears again and asks if he's enjoying the game. Rao yells that he hates this kind of game, that he didn't like anything about it. Behind him, Ren was already ready to continue what they had started before the fight. Now that he knows she'll eliminate him after getting that seed, Han makes up some excuse and says he's going to buy snacks. He opens the door and asks the girl to wait for him to come back. However, outside, he ends up bumping into a woman who pushes him to the ground and tells him to stay quiet. She steps on his chest and introduces herself as an agent of the Special Secret Services. Her name is Lin Fei, and she orders Han to cooperate, warning there might be an intruder in the house. While the hero gets lost in naughty thoughts because of the agent's beauty, she orders the subordinates to search the house. The agents, all geared up and protected, check every corner of the apartment. Since they don't find Ren, Han assumes she managed to escape in time. Taking advantage of the chance, he tries to convince Lin Fei that he's just a regular citizen, with no criminal record. But suddenly, the agent's bag and radio start to move, controlled by the developer's system. Without thinking much, Han slaps the radio to try to turn it off before she finds out. When the nerves calm down, he realizes the huge mistake he just made. To make it worse, the agent finds an inflatable doll at the scene. That alone was enough to get Han arrested. This guy just can't get it right. Already in the patrol car, he tries to explain he's innocent, but the officer just tells him to shut up. Suddenly, an explosion happens, and a medical octopus starts destroying everything in the city. Several other superpowered people show up too, fighting alongside the population against the monsters. Han keeps saying that each day this world gets even crazier. Meanwhile, Lin Fei tries to report the situation, but her superiors tell her not to get involved, saying the mission wasn't hers. Annoyed, she throws the radio away and says all rebels should be eliminated. At the Special Services headquarters, the officer even tells him to wait, but no one says anything for now, thinking the system will eliminate him this time. Han decides he'll tell everything at the next chance. But before that, Wang takes over the camera and ends up calling Han an idiot for standing still, even though he had the strength to beat everyone. The protagonist gets even angrier and blames the system for making him the target of the entire planet. In the monitoring room, Lin Fei tells a guard that locking Han up will make him tell all the truths. But on the camera, she sees the boy flipping her off with that defiant look. But we know he was actually flipping off the system. Naturally, she gets furious, of course, right? And admits that she had underestimated this boy. Before entering the room, a colleague from the agency approaches her with a mischievous smile. Everyone knows he has a crush on Lin Fei, and that shameless guy asks for a chance, promising an unforgettable night. She doesn't waste time and warns that she knows his reputation very well, since he's worthless, and threatens to end him if he keeps insisting. Right after that, shamelessly, She enters the room and even slams the door in the guy's face, making the other agents laugh. Seems like this guy Tang just wanted to use Lin Fei to climb the hierarchy with the director. Two colleagues comment that he was a coward, and that makes him red with rage. Already inside, Lin Fei goes straight to the point and asks Han what he saw on the day of the invasion and why his house was attacked first. Our hero tries to play dumb, but she already suspects he knows something. She shows that the wall of his house was destroyed and asks again, "Why are they after you?" Our hero doesn't know how to explain and keeps stalling. At that moment, in the hallway, screams echo, and we see some splashes on the wall. Tang appears with a weapon in hand, saying she really is powerful and wondering who will be next. Lin Fei quickly comes to mind, and Tang starts going down the stairs leaving a trail of bodies. In the evidence room, an employee asks if the director ordered an audit. Another employee questions if they need to do this at night. Tang just says he doesn't know. He asks where the new items that arrived are, and without realizing the danger, the guard says they're on shelves 19 and 21. With this information, that shameless guy defeats his colleague without hesitation. He comments that those items were real treasures, and that letting them gather dust was a crime. So he grabs everything he wants and sets off with a plan to take over the world. Later, on the stairs, an agent finds traces of blood and alerts the other guards. The news quickly reaches Director Watton, who becomes furious and even breaks the pen in half. The team was still checking the cameras, trying to find out who this killer was. Another officer arrives and says that Tang was seen entering the evidence room 20 minutes earlier and hasn't come out since. Even with suspicions about what he wanted to do there, the director doesn't want to hear guesses. He needed proof. For him, anyone who eliminated a colleague should also lose their life. Watton then decides to take care of it personally. In the evidence room, the team arms up and positions at the door, with the floor guarded and the windows sealed. They were ready to act, but before they could break the door, an explosion throws them away. From the smoke, Tang appears laughing at the agent's dedication for working overtime. This guy is worthless. They even start shooting, but Tang was covered by armor made of thick mist. The director's assistant starts to panic. They realize Tang was using a powerful artifact, but Watton stays calm and orders the use of nitrogen bombs. The agents launch this special liquid to try to break the armor. Even so, Tang mocks, saying he'll show what real terror is today. With the situation getting out of control, the director orders the evacuation alarm to be activated. However, he decides to keep his promise and stands in front of his men. Tang sees this as real stupidity, since now he was powerful with this armor and his new powers. Even so, when the men face off, the director doesn't back down with the other agents. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Lin Fei presses Han against the table and demands he confess everything. Suddenly, the alarm goes off and Lin runs out to see what's happening. She sees agents running in panic because of the destruction caused by Tang. Before she can understand, that madman breaks through the ceiling and appears there with a smirk on his face. He says he's happy to see her again, but Lin pulls out her gun. At that moment, Han, relieved by the distraction, finally manages to breathe. However, Tang kicks the door down and hits Lin in the stomach with his elbow. Taking the chance, he does what he wanted with the girl from the beginning. Mocking her, he says she can't resist anymore. Desperate, the girl could only ask for help from someone else who was there. And who was there was Han, trying to sneak away in the middle of this mess. He even says he doesn't want to get involved in their relationship, especially in the middle of all this chaos. Tang gets irritated but still doesn't intend to defeat our hero. Before Han can escape, the system invades the chamber and speaks to him live. It starts calling Tang a bum for insulting women, making the villain furious. Lin starts to feel even safer with that. And our hero keeps trying to make excuses, saying it wasn't him who said those words. It was the system. Tang holds back, showing surprising control. But the system keeps going, and even calls Tang impotent. Even swearing it wasn't him, Han ends up becoming the target of this villain, who thinks he's the one insulting with those harsh words. Luckily, he still has 30 points to use on a random skill. He hopes to get something useful, and unlocks the Blood Dragon Pillar. He could only use it 10 times, so he decides to activate the first one right away. The skill forces Tang to retreat, revealing our hero's new power. The little villain realizes the boy had been pretending to be weak all this time, but that only makes everything more fun for him. Tang then uses a dark ability and orders his enemies to be hunted. Elsewhere, Han and Lin Fei manage to have peace for a moment. Our hero celebrates still being alive, but the system appears calling him a coward. The protagonist gets annoyed and asks if Wang wanted him to throw himself into danger. After all, Tang had several permanent skills, while our hero only had temporary ones. Wang replies that the points don't matter and that she can give as many as she wants. Lin didn't understand anything about what was going on with that talking computer. Han takes the opportunity to explain everything to her and even yells that it's Wang's fault for creating this game and opening a dimensional wall between the worlds. Lin finally understands how Tang got so powerful so quickly. She says he probably took all the confiscated items from the department. Han asks what they should do now. The girl decides to look for her father, the only one who could do something about it. Han wanted to know if the director was that burned guy he saw on the cameras. They had access to the evidence room and saw someone badly injured. Lin panics, but our hero asks her to calm down. If she goes now, she'll be eliminated. And they don't have time, because a beast was approaching. Lin starts crying and begs for help, saying only he could do something to help her. The system likes the girl's attitude and suggests she motivate Han, if you know what I mean. Surprisingly, she doesn't refuse and tries to seduce him. But it's not enough for Wang, who says he feels nothing. This ends up hurting Lin's pride, who's always been adored by men. She never had to try very hard. Furious, she pushes our hero and starts taking off a bit more clothing. She won't accept that he doesn't find her attractive. Even thinking this situation was very strange. Our protagonist was obviously going to take advantage of it. Right after, Lin asks if that was enough, and the system answers yes. Han tries to apologize, but then the system window pops up with a reward. He had earned 200 points and became the first player to reach level 3. His stats increased, and he gained 3 more reward cards. At this level, the chances of getting good cards increased a lot. Suddenly, the door shakes from several strikes. The beast had finally arrived. Han grabs the 3 cards at once, without thinking too much, obviously. He had received the blue dragon armor, which was S rank, and a potion with a 30-minute effect. Finally, the last card was a skill that lasted for about 10 uses. The beast broke down the door, and Lin started to panic. But our hero appeared wearing an S rank armor. He took down the monster with such force that the explosion was felt outside the building. Tang notices that huge impact, and gets excited about Han's power. So he decides to go after him to fight together. In the department room, the beast was defeated. Lin was impressed with the prota's power, and the system explains that the armor is one of 4 S-rank pieces. With all 5 together, a person could even surpass divine power. Han's attitude toward the system changes. He decides to fully trust it. Pulling Lin along, he decides to save whoever he can. Wang gets all happy with that compliment, and our hero realized he could earn points by flattering the system. However, suddenly, an ice shard flies toward our hero. Han manages to dodge it just in time and almost dies. He blames the system for not warning him about the danger. Meanwhile, Wang gets irritated, saying that it's the player's responsibility to know these things. However, Tang ends up appearing. Seeing Han's powers, the officers suggest forming an alliance. He wanted to conquer the world with our hero, but our bro just wanted peace and was chilling with his waifus. Tang doesn't insist and instead activates his ice skill and decides to eliminate the hero. In response, Han activates his armor. Before fighting, he tells the officer to save the people while he handles Tang. The attacks came from all directions, but Han managed to defend himself. Tang, however, was faster and appeared in front of Han, ready to finish him off. Due to his lack of real combat experience, Han took a direct and powerful hit. What Tang didn't expect was that the armor was strong enough to destroy his skill and counterattack. The explosion that happened before with the beast repeated, and Tang was thrown out of the building. Han was shaken by all that. Wang tried to approach the hero, explaining that the S-rank armor worked like that. She also said that the blue dragon armor could return the attack even stronger. Feeling safer, Han thanked the system. But suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was the director, using his last strength to throw a punch. On the other side, Lin Fei was running to find her father. A nurse said he had woken up and gone after Tang. The problem is, he ended up finding Han on the way and was a bit confused. He thought our protagonist was Tang. The hero even wonders if that man was really Lin Fei's father. But before he could think much, the director destroyed a wall. With a furious punch, he charged at Han thinking he was Tang. Desperate, our protagonist could only run, begging him to open his eyes. It was only when Lin Fei arrived that the director stopped the attack. Later, ambulances arrived to rescue the injured. The initial report spoke of 6 eliminations, 13 seriously injured, and 43 with minor injuries. Also, there were 135 unknown items taken from the evidence room. Han then asked where Tang was, and Lin said he must have escaped in the chaos. However, the director promised to hunt him down. Without beating around the bush, Han asked about the system and the post-apocalyptic game. Han tried to explain that the system wasn't cooperating much, and that Tang only took a few devices. But that was already enough to cause chaos. No one knew how many items were still loose in the world. The director then reported everything to the superiors. He said they were ready for an armed response if necessary. After that, Lin Fei was appointed leader of special operations. She would have to recruit skilled people from all over the world. Han also ended up getting a role after going through training. However, as a good old lazy guy, he tried to escape, saying he was just a civilian. Lin showed up behind him with a scary aura and said that after what he did with her daughter, and for destroying the department, Han would have to make it up. Later, already at the building where he lived, our protagonist was complaining about being forced to do all this. Lin Fei asked if he still thought he had nothing to do with her, after everything they went through together. Instead of feeling happy, Han was confused by the sweet way the officer was acting. This one wanted something more. Directly, Lin told him to pack his things, because Tang could come back for revenge. But when he opened the door, Han came face to face with Lin striking a somewhat provocative pose. He even got embarrassed and didn't know where to look. Lin asked what the problem was, and thus began an argument between the three about whether Ren was Han's lover or not. Then, they arrived at a secret house, lent by the special services. That's where the hero was going to live now, and Han was impressed with the place. Lin said his room was on the second floor, next to hers, but she also said that Ren's room was in the garage. That made the girl furious, and Ori asked Ren not to provoke, since she could burn everything down. The girl went to rest, and left the two at ease. Ren then asked to go to his room, but Han said it was better for each to go to their own room. This one was a coward. The rejection made Ren cry, and she even wondered if he didn't like her anymore. The hero made up some random excuse and managed to enter the room and lock the door. Even so, Ren kept insisting outside to be let in and stay with him. The system thought it was a missed opportunity, since he could take advantage, and promised to give more points if the three stayed together. Han was already wondering why the system was insisting so much on these interactions. And finally, he ended up discovering the reason. Wong, the system, had never been in a relationship. So, she created this game thinking it would be like the real world, but ended up realizing something was missing: intimacy between humans. Even with all the power, she couldn't provide real pleasure to the players. After reflecting, she realized her mistake. She didn't know what intimacy was. It was like someone who reads comics but has never lived it for real. She even thought the world was based on those little stories. Han suggested that she search the internet, and even offered to send a very questionable link. However, the system ended up refusing, and said it preferred to learn by observing the NPCs she had trained herself. The hero said that just Ren was enough material for her to study, and even asked to stop with these situations. But the system started sweating bullets, giving excuses, and even said that more women meant more fun. At that moment, Han realized the system was no longer in control, and Wong started screaming that she was a god, and that she did have control. However, our hero wasn't really buying it. He even said that if she didn't tell the truth, he would cut the power and never speak to the game's creator again. With no way out, Wang ended up confessing everything. She said she messed up the code and broke the barrier between worlds. Now, the two worlds were linked forever. The hero was furious, worried about these catastrophic consequences. The system promised that with enough data, it could fix everything. But at the moment, it was too much for Han to handle. So he went to rest. The day had been very stressful. The next morning, he woke up a little confused. He didn't even remember when he had fallen asleep, and realized he wasn't dressed. And the worst part, Ren was right next to him just the same. He was shocked and started screaming. He was sure he had locked the door. Ren casually answered, saying she just pushed the door a little. But it wasn't quite like that. The door was completely destroyed. After thinking a bit, Han concluded that the data collection was probably already complete. But as if reading his mind, the girl explained she only followed his orders. She said he needed to rest before ensuring the baby's quality. Just to remind, they're here to get our protagonist's little seed to create the baby who will save the world. That's in the game's story. However, if he lets them take the seed, he will be eliminated. He quickly got up, got dressed, and went to prepare something to eat. Luckily for our hero and his peace of mind, Ren hadn't done anything weird. But now he knew he needed to protect himself better. Even so, something was off. One of his heads was using a certain object against his will. As if that wasn't enough, Ren stole a tiger from the zoo to cook for lunch, and news of that animal theft ended up on local TV. Han yelled at her to return that animal now, and even thought Ren's way of thinking was completely unique, not to say something else. But then, another problem appeared at the door. It was a strange girl looking for him. He asked who she was, and the girl introduced herself as Ju, the princess of the Northern Wind Empire. Seeing that he was uncomfortable, Ju said she didn't want to cause trouble. She just wanted to borrow something, and Ruin Han understood immediately. The Northern Wind Empire was the most powerful on the continent, a huge territory and a powerful army. But half a year ago, demons destroyed its capital. Since then, Ju wanted revenge. Her only hope was to recover the sword that once protected her kingdom. That sword was our hero, Ruin Han. Ju explained she needed his lineage, the Han family bloodline, to restore her people. So, she wanted what he had. And Han asked if she would leave after getting it. But she replied that the demons were also after him. They knew he held the secret to breaking the final seal, so unfortunately, she'd have to finish him off after the fun, if you know what I mean. Really not pleasant at all. The guy was even celebrating already. Without delay, Ju pulled out the sword and tore his clothes, and she was impressed by the descendant of the dragon general. Before he could react, she was already on top of him. Ruin Han warned that being rough like that could hurt him, but Ju seemed to be enjoying it. She had read in romances that movement made everything better. In the middle of all that, Lin showed up pointing a gun and wanted to know what was going on there. Ju replied that even if Lin was his wife, she had arrived at the scene first. That made our protagonist even more tense. Lin yelled at him for doing that kind of thing during chaos. That's when he realized. The second descent had begun. And no, folks, it wasn't a pun. Ignoring everything, he asked what the situation was. Lin, still not knowing where to look, explained that the agency was collecting items, but one team was having trouble. Han decided to go help, and Ju jumped in again, saying she needed the item today. Annoyed, he said if she wanted it, she'd have to wait all day, without breaking any fire hydrants. And the girl ended up believing that talk. In the romances, men lasted the time of a burning incense stick, meaning a few hours. But Ruin Han asked if those books mentioned anything as big as his. In other words, he didn't last long, but the guy was powerful. Without an answer, Ju agreed to wait. He offered a chance, but on the condition that she help with the missions. Excited, Ju promised to eliminate any enemy in the way. 20 minutes earlier, an explosion had happened in a building. Team D lost contact over the radio. Tang was there, responding to a call near Fei King Street parking lot. He had asked for reinforcements. And on the other side, they sent who he was already expecting, Captain Lin Fei. The scene shifts to Han, who was going with Lin as reinforcement. During the trip, the radio announced that the special team awaited orders, and Lin said Team D was 500 meters away. The focus was to rescue, not to fight. But he got distracted on the road and got an electric shock. His hand locked on the steering wheel, and he swerved just in time. Other vehicles weren't as lucky and ended up exploding. The officers didn't understand anything, but Han told them to look up. On top of the building, several criminals armed with sea-level cannons were ready to destroy everything. Seeing those shooters, Lin ordered everyone to disperse. But in 1 second, all weapons were cut. The assassins ended up eliminated. And all of that was Ju's doing. She was really hardcore. Without doing anything, Ruin Han gained experience points. And the system girl explained that since Ju was his subordinate, he earned half the experience points. And he got all excited, right? Since he could get rich without lifting a finger. But then, a strange sound echoed from the asphalt. A giant tentacle appeared. That was the celestial mechanism snake. Level 4. Ruin Han and Lin started screaming. She floored the accelerator, and the hero tried to use earth magic. It worked, but wasn't enough. The serpent was too fast, and he still told Lin to wait for a chance. Even wanting to fight, she ended up hesitating. Ju appeared flying onto the hood and warned that none of them were strong enough to help. But her pose, with those clothes on top of it, caught our hero's full attention. This guy was no good. Anyway, Ju went straight for the monster. Han wasn't going to just watch and ask the system for a card. He wanted a high-level skill to defeat the serpent once and for all. But when he flipped the card, he read, "Thanks for your sponsorship," and he got pissed right away. After all, it was a lottery, and sometimes you got nothing. Even so, he thought he was very unlucky. And while he complained, an energy arrow hit the car. The door exploded, and Lin fell right into the protagonist's lap. In the middle of that chaos, this guy has luck. Soon after, the car starts shaking a lot, and all the confusion creates a very suspicious scene. This guy was really lucky and still asks if, by chance, the girl had a weapon instead of opais, since his face was hurting a lot. During the turbulence, the bumps keep causing multiple accidents. The system inside the car gets all excited and announces on the dashboard that she was very satisfied. When the car finally stops, Tang appears approaching the scene. Han immediately asks what he plans to do. But, upon seeing the guy with the executor's blade, a cow-level weapon, our protagonist realizes he won't escape so easily. So, he asks for the cards to be activated again. Tang doesn't waste time and cuts the car in half with that sword, causing everything to explode. Before leaving, he brags and laments the tragic end of the two. But in the middle of the flames, he sees something coming out of the explosion. Han had used a rare card to summon the blue dragon's invulnerable armor, and managed to save Lin at the last second. The officer, of course, is even more enchanted with our protagonist, saying he was a true hero. Irritated with the scene, Tang goes on the attack and yells that he wants to see who has the stronger gear. Han is already jumping into the fight and tells the girl to wait. Surprisingly, all of Tang's attacks are blocked by the armor's scale shield. Desperate, X-Corp sends the shooters to eliminate the boy. The girl is shocked by the number of allies Tang managed to gather so quickly. The shooters unleash a burst of energy, and our hero manages to defend himself with great difficulty. Tang's confidence returns in full, and he orders the attacks to be at full power. Even so, Han keeps advancing, and Tang realizes he has fallen into a trap. He's caught in the crossfire. When he tries to run, something ends up trapping his feet on the ground. This time, the power that failed to restrain the celestial serpent worked well against humans. With no way out, Tang begins to beg the crew to cease fire. However, the shooters on top of the building misunderstood and thought he was ordering them to continue. In their minds, Tang was sacrificing himself as bait, so they kept firing the fire blasts. Under the crossfire, Tang sees his life flash before his eyes and, before the explosion, thinks of a sad poem about autumn, flowers, and capitalism. On top of the building, the same fate befalls the shooters thanks to Ren's surprise attack. She storms in and sets the rooftop ablaze. Han thanks his ally for the good work. Tang survives the gunfire, but now he has a new hairstyle. Poor man's joy never lasts. That's because Han manages to land a punch right in the middle of his chest, Kakashi style with the Marin. Across the building, an employee sees all of that and runs to inform the guildmaster, speaking about Tang's elimination. That makes her satisfied, as it proves Han is a valuable talent. Byong Sanji, president of Ice Frost, orders him to be recruited at all costs. With Tang out of action, the hero can finally relax. But he finds it odd to have earned only 50 experience points. Each shooter was worth 8, so the total should have been much higher. Lin calls him, and the boy runs off, leaving X-Corp lying on the ground. Suddenly, a blue energy surrounds Tang, heals his chest, and teleports him away. He screams excitedly, saying he's invincible now. Back at the conflict scene, one of the thugs confesses he's from the Silver Ice Moon Guild. They were ambushing the police under indirect orders from the guild. The officer is impressed with how fast this gang grew. She asks who the leader of this guild is. However, these thugs were only from the outer circle and didn't have that information. Lin takes the criminal to the station for a better interrogation. And now Ren, alone with the master, goes up to him and asks how she did today. Han praises the guild, but Ren wanted a reward for helping. He tries to dodge the topic by saying he needs to help Lin first. However, Lin appears out of nowhere, saying she destroyed the serpent's celestial mechanism all by herself. Even though it was difficult, she already finished the job, and the hero earned 100 points from it. Despite the gains, Han still finds it strange to be at level 3 and thinks he needs to focus more. He also realizes he doesn't want to gain points from sponsorships, meaning earning points because others are completing the missions. Later at home, our hero comments that he's starving. However, ordering food was unthinkable since everything was so expensive. Ren appears with a bowl of noodles she made herself. With a sweet smile, she hopes he really likes it. Han eats all excited and, after complimenting it, ends up spitting it out. Ren says that next time, he should try making his own food. Ju asks if she wasn't being too bold just because of instant noodles, and Han ends up agreeing. However, Ju also brings food, and with an outfit a bit more provocative than Ren's. Ren gets annoyed and says there's an order to serve the hero, and Ju counters by saying men like something new. The two then start arguing, beginning a rivalry between them. Meanwhile, Ranli just wanted to eat in peace. Ren says she won't let Ju do anything as long as she's around, and the girl says that, if that's the case, she'll find a way to get Ren out of the way. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Han thinks it's real food arriving. When he opens it, a very beautiful blonde appears, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. She introduces herself, saying she's Miss Bao's personal secretary. Our hero stands before a banquet, and she also says they're preparing clothes for him and asks that he please attend. Han asks who this Miss Bao is. He soon realizes it must be the business queen, heiress of millions, and CEO of the Kyong Group. The blonde confirms and returns to the car, informing they'll pick him up around 6 in the evening. Han finds this very strange, because he had already tried to get into that company and was rejected. So he thinks about not going, since it could be a trap. But when he opens the box he received, he finds stacks of cash. It's clear that the invitation is something very serious. Soon after, the police receive information that the hero went alone to the banquet. The report said the car belonged to a famous company, so the officers decided not to get involved in the matter. Even so, Lin loses her patience and fires those responsible. At the headquarters of the Koya Group, a big meeting was taking place. Several important people were present there, and suddenly, the most awaited person arrives. Everyone goes silent, impressed by Bao's presence. Her beauty was almost supernatural, since she was incredibly beautiful. They say she earned a PhD at 19 and solved a global quantum physics problem at 21. Besides that, she inherited billions, which many think is unfair. And I would also love to inherit billions. That's why many people try to get close to her, like the owner of the Hawaii Group. But in the middle of the conversation, someone announces that young Master Cow has just arrived. Cow had been clowning around for a while, so people just wanted to know what the trick was this time. Full of himself, the lunatic shows up on a red carpet, with flashing lights and 2 bodyguards by his side. Everyone is unsure how to react, except for Bao. Without much delay, Cow starts singing a really cheesy song, declaring his love for the president. The guests, obviously, are not into it. And the girl reminds everyone that he's the governor's son, telling them not to mess with him. Right after, the guy straps wheels to his knees and slides over to the girl. That guy really loved attention. Even with her pulling away, he insists on getting closer to give a passionate hug. But the reason she turned her face was different. Our protagonist was already there, eating as usual, before the conversation started. Cow comes sliding and hits his privates on our hero's leg. Furious, the playboy stands up and orders the guards to get rid of this scoundrel. The bodyguards, all bald, for some reason accept the order. But Bao steps in and says that this guy was John Han's guest. That leaves everyone confused, wanting to know more about who this guy was and why he was so important to the president. Since no one recognizes him, Cow says if he knows the rules, he should introduce himself. But before saying anything, Bao grabs his arm and takes our protagonist straight to her room. Cow gets super jealous, almost losing it right there, since he was in love with her. In the room, our protagonist compliments the place while the girl sits down. Bao says he shouldn't worry about what happened earlier. And suddenly, she starts taking off her sock, trying to seduce him, and asks if he knows the reason for the act. A bit awkward, Han thinks she wants to recruit him to her guild, and he's curious how she figured out who he was. Our protagonist explains that gathering so many people in so little time required a lot of money, and the way she contacted him gave it all away. Bao no longer hides it, and ends up revealing that she herself is the leader of the Silver Moon Guild, the known ice leader, and she still insists on the recruitment offer. However, our hero ends up refusing, saying the 5 million given earlier was already more than enough, and even slams the table, saying that if she really wants him in the guild, she'll have to offer something better. She realizes he had much more presence than Tang, and starts to see how he really was someone above the other guy. To show power, she asks how much he knows about the Apocalypse game. Han admits he doesn't know much and asks her to explain. Bao says she's been monitoring everything from the start and couldn't even hack the system, and concludes that the game isn't normal and its creator must be a genius. Out of nowhere, Wang appears on the panel behind her to show off, which annoys our hero. Bao notices and asks what he's hiding there. Even so, she continues explaining that since the first descent, she's been collecting information about the items that came to this world. She found out all those items were supernatural and managed to travel from the game. But the girl doesn't understand why our hero wasn't surprised. That's because he already knew everything and couldn't hide it. This situation bums out the blonde a bit, but she reveals she knows where and when the next descent will happen. Our hero understands the time, but not the place. She explains that these descents are global and affect the whole world, but good items appear in specific areas with certain patterns. Touching his face, Bao says if he joined her, she'd help him reach the top. Outside the window, Lin appears disguised as a spy and gives orders through the radio for the departments to act. She never imagined Bao was behind this and feels a sting of sadness. If Han accepted the proposal, she wouldn't have any role there anymore. Inside the room, our hero refused to be recruited, saying he was already committed to someone else. Lin heard this from outside and got all flustered, thinking he was talking about her. Even so, our hero leaves and tells Bao to settle the guilt before the police show up. The secretary asks if they should hire someone to eliminate him, but Bao says no, because having an interesting guy like him around was very good. Outside the building, Cow waits for a long time. Finally, the guard says the guy showed up, and Cow starts showing off. The guard asks if he's already waiting for the staff to bring the car, setting the perfect stage for a show. But Han opens the app and goes straight to a shared bicycle. Cow gets pissed off for being ignored by someone with such low status, let's say, right? And even orders his men to attack. But even with the car running, it wouldn't move. Looking back, there's Tang holding the vehicle in place. Later, our protagonist gets home and complains about the price of the bike. When he opens the door, Lin greets him with a smile and a glass of water. She says with the heat he needs to stay well hydrated, and even mentions the AC isn't cooling properly, trying to tease our boy. The hero turns all red, and she moves closer asking if he's feeling unwell. But he messes it all up by asking about Ren and Ju. Lin punches a hole in the wall from being so stressed, and says she told them both to renew their IDs. Since they'll be alone, she was planning to reward Han for how he handled Bao. While she imagines how the night will be, a missile approaches the house. Since the place is a secret service location, the sentries fire and destroy the projectile. Even so, the shockwave breaks the windows. In the middle of all this chaos, our hero asks what the hell is going on. Lin says the weapon system has been activated, and While he was still trying to understand why there were weapons in his house, Lin calls the security team. Even far from there, the sensors detect a short-range artillery attack. Since the house had withstood it, they start tracking the origin of the shots. Cao freaks out because the plan had failed, and now he thinks they're in trouble. Tang, on the other hand, says there's no need to panic, because that attack was only to mark the target. The real show was about to begin, with mounds of earth turning into level 2 explosive cicadas. These cicadas fire bursts into the sky non-stop, like a firework display. At the house, the officer sends a message to a special team, saying that if the enemy has artillery, they must have more hidden weapons. The guy who receives the message only sees some lights in the sky before everything explodes. Cao almost jumps with joy for finally defeating his rival in front of his goddess. However, Tang gets into the car and tells Kay to follow him, saying it wasn't over yet. Kay is confused, so Tang explains that Han wasn't supposed to be defeated so easily. And he was right. Even with the house destroyed, Han and Lin came out unharmed. Lin was furious at the enemy's arrogance, even though they survived. The next day, Lin ends up destroying a door along with other officers during a raid. Bao appears in the office, and Lin asks if something is wrong. She says there's an arrest warrant for Bao on suspicion of an attack. The executives in the room reject the decision and surround the officers with their bodyguards. Bao mocks them and says they don't have the strength to arrest her. At that moment, Han appears and advises Lin not to fall into the trap of the real culprit. Bao is surprised to see that Lin believes her. Meanwhile, Han explains that if Bao wanted to eliminate him, she would have done it at the banquet. The girl agrees to cooperate and goes with the officers without resistance. Even though that's what Lin wanted, she was annoyed because it was Han who resolved everything, not her warrant. At the station, fans crowd, and a report demands Bao's arrest because of her fame. During the interrogation, Bao denies involvement with the guild. Lin then asks why she invited Han to be her right hand. She replies that she just admired him and wanted to talk. Outside the room, the director asks if Huan is sure of what he's doing, and our hero confirms, saying Bao still wants him to join the guild. The system asks who is behind this, but the important thing is the reason, not the identity. Meanwhile, employee Lidal walks through the company. Before entering the office, Tang appears and asks if the system that predicts the future is in there. Back in the interrogation, Han feels like he's fallen into a trap. An employee bursts in, and Han says he's going to the company to keep watch. But the employee warns that the station is being attacked by superhumans. The target is high-security prisoners, and Han suspects it's the work of the same enemy, deciding to act. Before that, the director says he now has a team ready to help. Bang Shin introduces the new Rapid Response Division, who salute Han as captain. The director says each member of the team can face 10 enemies alone, thanks to their power. They also use skill badges, which make them even stronger. Han gives the order and everyone moves out immediately. At the prison, criminals are having a party, some even with women. One tries to take advantage of a woman, but gets a fire blast straight to the face. Han was there and orders them to arrest everyone and eliminate those who resist. The elite team acts so fast it almost seems unfair. Later, a soldier says the situation is under control, but some fugitives are still on the loose. Not even the ability user was found, which means they left before the team arrived. It might have just been a distraction, and it was. Bao's secretaries were trapped inside the company. While Tang was on the phone about Han's arrival, Cao panics. Tang destroys the phone and says this time he will defeat the boy. He won't be humiliated again. At that moment, our hero arrives at Phoenix HQ, which used to belong to Ren. He says thanks, but Ren insists on going up with him. Before entering, the two find a dead guard, a sign something very wrong was happening. On the president's floor, Tang appears and says he's been waiting a long time. Han is shocked. He thought Tang had been eliminated. But the guy enjoys the reveal and ends up saying he's actually immortal. However, Han isn't shaken. If he can't defeat him, then he'll imprison that guy forever. Tang isn't intimidated and activates a magic barrier with a simple gesture. Ren is confused, and Han tries to break the barrier with a kick, but fails. Then, he is teleported to a flat and very strange place. It was a completely different place from the company. Han asks the system where he is, and it says it's an S-class illusion. Also, it can only be broken from the outside. Han asks if there's no way out, and the system says that in most cases, no. But Han is an exception. He can escape by breaking the first seal with Ren. The big guy logically asks what seal that was. The system makes a cheeky face and shows a very inappropriate scene. The hero gets annoyed and throws the phone on the floor. This guy is a fool! The system explains that the game characters have biological safety periods. Let's put it that way. In other words, in those moments, intimacy is safe, because the NPCs are protected. He could practice dual cultivation without being eliminated. Every time fusion happens, The boy's strength increases, and the soul bond can double his combat power. Han comments that he's going to bother Ren a little, but she says she's totally willing. The big guy drools with anticipation. Finally, he could get to the good part, something he had longed for after so much waiting. Their experience finally happens, but they needed to act fast, so there wasn't much time to enjoy it. In just a few minutes, the valve opens and a waterfall surrounds a tree, turning everything into energy. This energy breaks the seal and the system announces that the boy has reached the second level of the character. Nothing philosophical about this. Ren activates a magic spell with her giant spiritual form, which shoots into the sky. The illusionary world is completely destroyed, leaving only Han and the others inside the company building. Tang grabs the devices from the floor, eager to see the hero desperate. However, the devices react to each other and end up exploding, injuring the officer. He realizes angrily that, even after all this, the hero was still alive. After a full day of battles, Han promises to end everything once and for all. And Tang doesn't plan to give up, especially with a Class A weapon called Twin Blades of the Wind. Even with an S-level armor, it starts to crack from the blade's strike. The system warns that a counterattack would be necessary, since the twin blades pierce the armor. Luckily, Han's spiritual form can turn into any weapon with the soul bond. With that, he easily cuts the Class A blades. Besides the sword, the boy now gains the S-class equipment called Spiritual Eye, which alerts about danger. Tang tries to escape, a bit confused with the protagonist's power, but our hero cuts Tang's calf and stabs the sword into his back. This time, he wasn't going to let Tang escape, but also didn't want to defeat him yet. He asks how Tang manages to come back to life as if nothing happened. However, the villain activates another device and says Han will have to ask that in the next life. A flash explodes on the floor, and the company headquarters catches fire. Minutes later, Lin arrives with the police and sees the protagonist in terrible condition. Ren was even worse and needed to be taken to the hospital urgently. Lin is surprised that Han is alive after that absurdly big explosion. Our hero explains that Ren had saved him at the last moment. His sword turned into an umbrella and absorbed the impact of the explosion. Even so, Han was thrown against the wall. However, Ren took the worst of it for her young master. Han is desperate about her condition. Now that everything is calmer, Lin reflects on how insane this whole story is. Han reveals that Tang was responsible for everything and that he was still alive. This guy probably took over Bao's ultra-secret program. After that supposed death, Han ends up running upstairs with Lin. Soon after, in the boss's office, they find the secretary tied up. After removing the gag, the blonde reveals that Cal was also involved in the theft. There, she asks where the guild members were to let this happen. The secretary says everyone was bought with Cal's money. Elsewhere, Tang wakes up amid screams, still in shock from that explosion. Even in pain, he swears he won't fail again. The phone rings, and it's Cal asking where he is. The two meet, and Cal is furious that Tang ruined his reputation. Tang had promised to help win over Bao, but ended up blowing up the company building. Even so, he asks for the flash drive that Cal was supposed to bring. Now Cal doesn't want to do business with this traitor anymore, and even regrets it, but believes the people behind Tang would handle him. This villain is unfazed, as he knew he was stronger than those criminals. Cal orders everyone to attack and offers a reward of $1 million. The mercenaries charge in with everything. Tang already equips the Night Shadow, and also a high-class item. He crushes all the attackers as if they were nothing. At the other company, Bal is in shock for having lost her program. The hero comments that, if other powerful people found out about it, it would be very dangerous. Unfortunately, there was no way to deactivate the program remotely. There, she asks if it's possible to create another set to balance it. Bal says it'll be difficult, since even the databases were destroyed. It would take months to collect everything again. However, our protagonist assures that he doesn't need to recover the data manually. He could ask the system for anything. Bal asks what that means, but it was too complicated to explain. He ends up saying it's like he's the game's genius developer. The girl is shocked to find out that the developer is actually an artificial intelligence. The hero gets straight to the point and asks if Bal could provide the data. The system agrees, but with a condition of poverty. Then something ends up appearing there between Han and Bal. Meanwhile, Tang approaches because the enemies are somewhat afraid to attack them. Reaching level 4 only made him more eager to keep defeating these weak beings. But, since he was already tired, he warned that anyone who wanted to switch sides could do so now. For those who accepted X-Corp, which is Tang's nickname, he promised he'd give freedom to that person in this new world he was going to create. Scared, the mercenaries quickly kneel down. With so many people joining, money became a serious problem. Tang looks at Cal and asks if he had the cash to cover all this. The boy already starts crying, admitting he was just middle class. Even so, Tang began threatening him. He said if the boy's father didn't pay $300 million, he was screwed. Terrified, Cal ran off with everything he had. And Tang, without wasting time, sent his new henchmen after him. Now, with money, soldiers, and info, Tang swore he would defeat Han and rule the world. Meanwhile, in another house, our hero finished his shower and went to the bedroom. The two girls sat on opposite sides of the bed, unaware of each other. Then, our hero tried to start a conversation with the policewoman, but she totally ignored him. Han said she still had time to change her mind, but in front of him, she started taking off her swimsuit. Blushing, he said that was the way to get back what was lost. But before anything, he warned he would shower first. Wang appeared saying it was the first time they worked together. Han immediately started yelling, thinking it was strange for someone to force that on someone else. What he didn't expect was that Bao might really want to do that with him. Then, the system revealed it could track feelings based on her data, and Bao had been in love with our hero for a long time. Han changed his attitude. The system explained it was only helping to fulfill her wish. But at that moment, a shoe was thrown hard at the TV. Lin warned she was going to sleep and threatened to defeat our hero if she heard anything. Wang, as always, exposed that she detected high estrogen levels in Lin, and without telling Bao, she went over and hugged our hero from behind, explaining her reasons. She said his calm and confidence were unique, and that had affected her. Everyone looked at Bao with desire, but our hero was different from other men. He replied it wasn't on purpose. He was just allergic to those signals. Before he finished, Bao pulled him and ended up kissing him. Things started to heat up. Lin, lying there on the bed, pretended not to hear anything. And so, the atmosphere began to warm. The system got all excited and treated it like a live show. Since Lin joined the police, she became the center of attention. But she never cared about weak people, even with many approaching. When she joined the special sector with high grades, no one dared to approach her anymore. Only that playboy Tang kept trying, since he wanted to rank up. She thought the protagonist was a loser, but he proved otherwise to her. And thinking her soulmate was like the other girl was too much for her to bear. Meanwhile, Bao was there enjoying herself. However, our protagonist said the mission wasn't over yet. Without shame, he ended up asking Lin to join. She refused, all embarrassed, saying she wasn't as reckless as them. But seeing Bao was exhausted, she admitted she couldn't be selfish. While Bao begged for help, Lin finally gave in. She was beaten by insistence and curiosity. Without wasting time, Lin went to get ready as if to take a shower. Bao sighed in relief to finally be able to rest. Our hero said he was going to fit the piece in the puzzle. Lin was curious to see what he had. When she felt the puzzle piece, she understood why Bao was complaining. In a very philosophical way, Lin compared it to riding a white horse. It was no use asking the horse to slow down because it was wild. And after reaching the limit, they both fell exhausted to the ground. After this not-so-metaphorical ride, Lin said she accepted the horse. Even though she found it strange, she admitted it had been wonderful. However, finished, the hero asked if the system was satisfied. But the TV started showing strange codes, making Han worried. Both Lin and Bao asked what was happening. The system said everything was under control. So you can guess what was happening with the system, right? It explained that previous data was arriving en masse. Suddenly, the system evolved into a cute 2D girl, surprising Han. Without much delay, Wang said she would send the files for Bao to rebuild the program. After some time working, Lin asked if Bao could predict the next descent. But before any answer, the event could only be seen from the window. Han asked Bao to focus on finding the resource zone because he was going after Tang. At the top of the building, Lin asked if there was still time. Luckily, Bao worked fast and confirmed she had already located the place. Tang was definitely still in the city, but since they lost the advantage, there was a risk of arriving too late. Luckily, Bao has a teleportation device that can change everything. After passing through the wormhole, they arrived at the destination. Han was curious about how Bao got an item like that. She explained that, as leader of a big guild, she had some resources saved. There, she noticed they were already at a disadvantage. There were clear signs villains had passed through there too. It seemed another group had been at the site, with evidence of a recent fight. Soon they were dragging bodies inside. Han wondered if it was the spikes again. But there, she analyzed the footprints and ruled out humans, suggesting some fierce beast. Even so, they had no choice but to go in and take a look inside. Bao asked why there was no one, not even electricity. Then, Lin suggested calling reinforcements, but Han insisted on handling it alone. Suddenly, a dry body appeared, and a creature emerged on sight. Han decided to check better, but heard a scary noise from the second floor. When they got there, a man shot wildly and screamed for everyone to go to hell. Without warning, Al-Jinja shoots the shooter's neck and eliminates him instantly. Han even tries to understand what that was. Bao feels something strange nearby. When she turns around, she comes face to face with a giant spider. Desperate, she starts screaming for help. Han manages to destroy the spider with a very powerful strike. Confident, he asks if Bal is okay. But he soon realizes they are in the middle of a nest of those creatures. The two girls ask what they would do. The only option was to run as fast as possible. After a long escape, they find a door. It was locked and the girls couldn't open it. Han forces the door and knocks down two men who are hiding inside. He soon realizes there is a whole group of refugees in there. The men get furious, accusing Han of bringing the spiders back. The girls run inside, and Lin barely manages to close the door. Even so, they are met by armed bandits. Han comments that inside it was worse than outside. There, he already draws his weapon and introduces himself as a police officer. Han tries to calm the situation and asks if they are hotel employees. However, the men explain that all the employees had already been eliminated. He then asks if they are connected to Tang. Hearing that they are, he is not surprised by Tang's absence. After all, it's typical of that scoundrel to send others and not show up himself. He was a coward. Still, the bandits threaten Han. He warns that any suspicious move, and he will open the door for the spiders to come in. The bandits think he is bluffing, that he wouldn't be able to do that. After all, they are closer to the entrance, so they would be eliminated first. But Han doesn't care, because everyone will share the same fate. He starts counting to 3. The bandits don't believe him. Then Han decides to skip the count and tells Lin to open the door. Panic takes over the bandits, who surrender immediately. Han praises their choice. Minutes later, they were tied up. The leader says Tang sent them there to collect resources. But as soon as they entered, they were attacked by an endless swarm of spiders. Unfortunately, one by one their allies were defeated. Without beating around the bush, our hero demands to know where Tang was. The bandit pretends not to know. Our protagonist, of course, doesn't believe him. He starts dragging the man to the door, threatening to throw him to the spiders. Afraid, the man reveals Tang was hiding in his base. Han recognizes that Tang knows how to hide very well, but decides to go after him now. Lin asks how they will get out, since the spiders are dangerous. Han bets they are afraid of fire, so he blows up the entrance with a strong burst of fire. The spiders retreat scared, which surprises the girls. However, before escaping, a giant spider appears. It pierces Han's chest with its stinger. It even lifts him off the ground with extreme ease. Lin draws her weapon and promises to save him. But the giant spider calmly says it will not eliminate him. It states it will free him if the girls help with something. This was a level 5 creature. Actually, what it wanted was 500 humans in exchange for Han's life. He suspects and asks why it won't hunt alone. The spider gets irritated and wounds him again. It says he has no right to negotiate. It tells the girls to hurry because it's hungry. If they take more than an hour, the protagonist will be in big trouble. If it takes more than 2 hours, he would lose his life. What worries Lin and Bal most is Han's possible helplessness. The spider opens a path for them to leave, and they don't waste time. Lin decides to seek reinforcements from the department. Bal runs to the hospital to call Ren and Ju. The bandits, seeing this, try to flee too. But they didn't make a deal with the queen and ended badly. After a while, Han regains control of his body. Around him, there were many skeletons and webs. He realizes he is in the queen spider's lair. At the bottom of the web, other bandits were being prepared to become snacks. The hero wonders if Tang is also among the captured. The queen spider appears and approaches one of the trapped bodies. She pierces the body with her stinger, making it melt. She feels great pleasure doing this. This allows her to lay more eggs of small spider monsters. Seeing the number of spiders, the hero asks if they all hatched from her. The queen responds that humans will find out when the girls bring the bodies. She also warns that she won't keep the deal and will eliminate Han. Then he feels a little calmer, thinking this spider is just crazy. The queen doesn't like being called that at all. She even thinks about defeating him right then and there. Still, our hero notices she is using many tricks. This shows she is afraid of sunlight. The queen's reaction confirms his suspicion. She chose this place because many people would come looking for several resources there. Even in danger, our hero still tries to get information about the items. But the queen was not dumb enough to fall for that trick. Han stops pretending he is trapped. He activates his blue dragon armor. He breaks the queen's stinger, leaving her incredulous. After all, the poison should already be working. He shouldn't have that much strength. Our hero explains that, at first, the poison was working, but he ended up using a cold heart pill. With that, he changed his attribute, which was fire, to the poison attribute. The queen didn't expect that, but still believes she can defeat him. Without wasting time, she orders all her offspring to attack Han. Even fully healed, our hero still doesn't have skills against poison. So, he summons system cards and says he deserves something good for completing his objectives. Looking at the card, he doesn't understand what it does, and soon gets scared recognizing a familiar little girl in the ability. Han thinks if he had known this, he would have chosen another card. Still, he accepts his fate. The system appears and says that, with this super rare card, Han will no longer need electronics to see her. But for him, nothing could be worse. While they talk, the queen gets even angrier. She thinks this boy is mocking her and attacks with everything. They are thrown far away by the impact. Han asks what skills the girl has to help him defeat the monster. Because she is at a low level, she cannot summon weapons, but she can provide some common items. The options are a jade bed, a dragon tendon kite, and a mysterious bird fabric. The hero thinks the system must be joking with him. The queen laughs, saying she has never seen such a strange pair. Without wasting time, Han asks if there is anything really useful. The system says that in the current state, it cannot provide anything with combat power. So our hero asks if it can at least call Tang's transport support. The girl starts looking and asks if he is trying to escape. The queen does not want to allow the escape and decides to finish everything quickly. She assumes her most powerful form. Han warns he won't hold on for long, and that the girl should alert him when she finds the queen. The queen advances with huge claws instead of hands. Han tries to defend as best he can, but the attack makes him think how many humans she must have defeated to be so strong. The armor's shield cannot withstand the impact and breaks. They almost get hit in the face, and on the second blow, the queen hits and throws Han hard against the wall. At the last second, the girl throws an item to him. Even stuck on the wall by the webs, our hero manages to catch the item. Han smiles and activates the item. A rift opens in the structure of the place. The queen asks if he intends to escape through the tunnel. Even without being able to breathe because of the web prison, our hero never wanted to flee. Help came from outside and hit the queen directly. She never imagined the sun could be so powerful. Now that he was recovered, he activates the dragon armor. The queen realizes he is no longer trapped and understands he kept her immobilized on purpose. Our hero was only trying to gain time with all that. The queen begs for her life, saying she could serve him as a mount or something like that. Comment if you would like to have such a spider as a mount. However, Han didn't want to hear any of that, and ends up crushing her mercilessly. With the battle over, the system asks why he doesn't care about the items. Our hero assures he will find them sooner or later. Besides that, there are more important things now. He leveled up 2 levels at once. But instead of celebrating, Han asks if the system noticed something. Before, he received a congratulations message for being the first to reach those levels. But now that he was at level 5, he got nothing. So probably someone had already passed level 5. That could mean Tang had reached a higher level than him. Leaving the hotel, our hero found reinforcements arriving. Han says he will go after Tang, since the spiders were defeated. He asks the girl to protect the building and look for special items. The officer offers to continue with him, but our hero refuses, saying the more people go with him, the more attention it would attract. Lin smiles, relieved to see the big guy was okay. Suddenly, a soldier shouts that someone appeared at the top of the stairs. Since the person ran at high speed, the police start shooting. Lin orders the team to follow, saying they can't let the stranger escape. She wonders if Tang's team is still in the prison searching for rare items. Meanwhile, a group of men celebrate having survived the trip and now being full of items. One says the boss was right, and they found many treasures. They even call Tang a genius. They hear a strange noise, but the bald man tells his partner to focus on the road and not worry. Then he says it's better to prepare so it doesn't look like they were hiding items from the boss. However, Han hears everything from above, hidden on top of a car. Later, the subordinates arrive at the base and find it strange the boss hid in such an empty place. Getting out of the car, Lin asks how the collection went. They answer they managed to gather 18 items. She still asks about the last group and why they haven't returned. The bald man said maybe they had problems on the road. No one knows where the boss was, but Han hears everything under the car like a true 007 spy. He is impressed by Tang's ability to gather so many people in such little time. The guy really was very clever. Then, our protagonist realizes he would need a safe place for the boss to arrive. Meanwhile, one of the hostages complains about the situation, and the guard replies, "What is this? Or do you pee your pants?" The guy cries, saying even after giving all the money, he was not released. The guard didn't care. But Han appears out of nowhere, knocking out the bully. The guy barely reacts, and Han slaps his mouth, warning if he says a word, he will regret it. Minutes later, the guy tries to thank our hero, who says it was all coincidence. This guy dresses to go along and asks where the car was. Han doesn't understand what he means by that, and the guy gets worried about having to walk down the mountain. With a little smile, our hero says they will have a car as soon as they finish stealing one. Soon after, the two appear disguised at the main gate. The guard asks why they took so long. Han makes up that the boy had serious bladder problems. After some lame excuses, the guard lets them in. The guy points to the boss's room but warns there are many people inside. So, Han enters and comes face to face with a very beautiful woman. That worries him because of his history. You know, right? The women there are tough on our hero. He comments this doesn't seem like Tang's style, and the woman laughs, saying she wouldn't be there without a reason. She still warns that, to find the boss, he would need to defeat her in a fight. Han is confused by the girl's bizarre hands. The system warns that she is a mutant chemist from the game. Our hero wonders how the cultivation game ended up turning into this whole mess. But the mutant is proud of her creations. Without much talk, the girl goes on the attack. Han dodges easily and asks where the boss was. The mutant doesn't answer while he keeps dodging and making some jokes. He asks if all the girls in the game are like that. The system notices the surprise as Han defends himself without any equipment. This happens because his attributes were evolving over time, so he was getting stronger. However, the girl still hasn't used all her power and decides to go all out. She transforms her own tongue into a drill. Han comments that it feels like he's in a horror manga. She announces she will eliminate him, but he only thinks about how she manages to talk with her tongue like that. Irritated, the mutant charges at high speed and manages to tear our hero's shirt. Even so, he keeps dodging, driving the system crazy. The problem is that if a single hit landed, his body would be crushed. So, the system shoots to force him to retreat. But it was too late. At the last second, Han activates the blue dragon armor. Her blow hits hard and ends up bouncing off. Han comments that despite the speed, she wasn't very smart. The system cheers excitedly to see that our protagonist's strategy worked. The hero explains he didn't use the armor before to avoid alerting the opponent. Outside, the guard and another ally make noise, worrying Han. So he runs out of the room and asks what was happening. The guard says that fortunately, the police had arrived. Lin runs up the stairs to find the two. She was the one who was in love. Han asks why she was there since he had asked her to stay at the hotel and protect the place. She explains, somewhat exhausted, that someone stole all the resources and fled to that place. She asks if there is anyone suspicious. Han hears a noise coming from a room. They realize the mutant girl was stealing again. Our protagonist launches a burst of fire that explodes next to her, stopping her escape. He approaches the girl saying she is the second of the night and that he won't hold back anymore. But, to his surprise, the girl surrenders and says she admires our hero. Suddenly, the third girl appears and introduces herself as Duquess Sinagio. She also says she came to marry our hero. She says they can do it before the wedding, leaving our hero completely shocked. At the same time, he feels tempted. He still pushes her back, calls her a liar, and tells her to stop making things up. Then, he demands that Sinagio explain why she was stealing the items and if she has any connection to Tang. Immobile, the pink-haired girl says this is part of the Tease clan tradition, which was her clan, and that it was an engagement test. The system confirms the clan lived in Wind Village, in the west, and they specialize in theft, with about 400 members. Han asks the officer what she meant by this engagement test. She explains the hero is seen as the savior who will defeat the Demon King. Because of that, they wanted to marry him. Han answers he can help even without marriage, trying to be kind. But she punches him because the clan's rules say they only accept help from a spouse. Then, she says they can discuss it later. Chenille is very happy because her father wanted her to marry the Demon King. But she always thought the hero was a better idea. Han asks if she is running away from the marriage. She confirms yes. Then he asks if she isn't afraid the Demon King will defeat her whole clan. The girl answers it will be fine as long as she takes the savior with her. Han asks if the king is really that powerful. She explains that not even the whole clan would be able to defeat him. But all this is heard by Tang, who now knows everything. Out of nowhere, he feels something very good. A girl was praying for him. Curious, she asks what he was watching on the computer. Tang dodges, saying the interesting thing is her. The two end up meeting again later. Our hero is at his house and ends up introducing the group's new member. Chenille introduces herself excitedly, saying she is our hero's fiancée, and asks the other girls to take good care of her. Of course, the other girls get very irritated, especially angry with Han. Chenille doesn't understand and asks what the problem was since the two were clearly soulmates. Ju understands she wants to compete for Han, so she draws her sword and challenges Chenille to a duel. She ends up accepting, but our hero warns that if they destroy the house again, they will have to sleep outside. In the end, he didn't care about anything anymore, and didn't mind if they destroyed it. He just wanted it to end soon. Suddenly, his phone rings. He asks what it is and gets a tense reply. The voice on the other side said they accessed the game backend and found nothing about biomanos. So, the blonde doesn't believe the mutant came through the descent. Then he raises the hypothesis that maybe Tang discovered how to open channels directly to this game. If that is the case, he could summon any character from another world. That meant the action would increase drastically, and our hero now needed to double his precautions. After this tense talk, our hero lay on the bed reflecting on how Tang managed to do all this. The guy must be very intelligent. In a laboratory surrounded by scientists and executives, an innovative experiment was about to begin. He asks Professor Zhang about the project's progress. This Zhang replies that it was almost working, and that the software creator was a true genius. In seconds, this Zhang identifies the dimensional location of the game characters and ends up activating the system. A black portal appears in the middle of the place, causing everyone to panic. From the center of the portal emerges the true Demon King from another world. He becomes curious to know who summoned him. Tang, with his henchman, appears and says that he was the one who called him. Without wasting time, he says he knows where the Demon King's runaway bride is, and proposes they join forces. The next day, the hero wakes up tired but quickly gets up upon hearing a commotion outside. Outside, Cao appears with musicians and is enchanted by the beauty of the girls accompanying our hero. And he was not only enchanted by the girls' faces because, like a good old shameless man, he also notices other measurements. Our hero appears and asks if someone is getting married. Ren explains that those people say they know the protagonist. The boy looks closer and recognizes Cao, getting shocked. Cao starts crying and apologizes for having offended the father. Han shouts that he is not his father, but Cao thanks him anyway and says he will follow everything he says. Tired of all this situation and the attention he keeps receiving, our hero tries to leave, but she invites him for a coffee. He says he lost his appetite, but Cao asks him to wait, as he has something important to tell. Inside the house, Han asks what this information is. She explains that when she was captured, she met a professor who had also been kidnapped by Tang. She doesn't remember the name exactly, only that it was Liu something like that. But it was possible to see they were building something together. Later, Bal identifies this man as the main quantum mechanics specialist who disappeared about 3 days ago. That finally makes this kidnapping make sense, right? Probably it was Tang who took him. Han asks why the villain was interested in a professor. The girl replies that no one could say for sure, but it was certainly not something good. Our hero agrees but cannot avoid getting distracted by Bal's beauty. She continues talking that she will monitor particles to try to track any trace. Changing the subject, Bal comments that she has a present for him, Han. He thanks her, staring at her face, not noticing what the present was. She asks why he is all red. Our protagonist makes excuses, saying it was because of the heat. Bal laughs and goes to get the present. While she is out, our hero wonders why he was so nervous around her. Bal returns with a box in her hand and says that, after the last incident, she no longer lets anything important be thrown away. Han murmurs to himself that things evolved too fast since last time. She gives him a bracelet. When he asks what it is, she tells him to wear it, then explains that she created this item, and it serves to store and activate resources when he needs. That was great for things with limited usage time. Our hero thanks her again. She says that, together with Lin, she decided to focus on him to defeat Tang. That's why they went after the director. But at the department, she got a direct no. They didn't want to help. Her father, who is the director, said that even having the items, he has no authority to use them. Lin got angry because if the items stay unused, they will be stolen again. Aten still explains that only someone with high rank, values, and discipline could take care of that. There she understands he was talking about himself, and she was not grateful at all for that. Later, 2 men laugh in a luxury room. One of them was Major Lu, who says that now everything depends on the other. The other guy was Lu Shang, his son, and a standout student, a gold medalist. This Shang reassures his father, saying he will handle Tang. But the father warns that not even the special forces managed to defeat this ex-cop. Still, Shang believes they can use Han as bait. Later, Han is called to a meeting. Ju explains that the military does not know how to use the items and asked for his help. But the major ended up disappearing, and the equipment is being destroyed. Meanwhile, Shang tries to convince a journalist to hold a headline for 2 days. In exchange, he promises to take her to dinner. Then he hangs up. Shang greets Han saying he heard about him. Our hero replies that he is no hero at all. Still, Shang continues flattering Han, and he begins to give in. Meanwhile, Lin gets suspicious of Shang. Lacking humility and afraid of responsibility, she asks for help training Han. He asks if she is sure about this, since these battles are real and people actually lose their lives. This is no joke. And the girl confirms, saying she knows the risks and is ready to sacrifice for the country. Looking like a badass savior, he says he will go to hell instead of others. That guy was a liar. However, this exaggerated attitude is almost unbearable to watch. Shang asks how the recording went. The team said it was inspiring, even without tears. Then he orders to add a beauty filter and send it to TV immediately. Lin and Han feel embarrassed by this whole scene, right? Still, the hero returns to the training topic. But guards enter with wine and a chair for the young master. Shang complains he is tired of standing and says he doesn't want to get involved anymore. Lin finds this attitude very regrettable, since the country is choosing a superpower for lose. But this information was still classified. But according to the military leader, whoever is chosen gains huge importance. Shang says he has no interest in that, and that he is only there because of his father. Despite this, He reveals that he knows where Tang was hiding. Because he has contacts in the underworld and with the authorities, he thinks it is very easy to find this Tang. So he ends up giving the location to the hero. He asks why he was outsourcing the work. Shang replies it is an unnecessary risk since there are better people for that. Lin asks if the information was reliable and if he really trusts this source. Shang bets his life on it. Han runs off, and the officer promises to call reinforcements. He does not want to waste time since he finally knows where the enemy is. Shang orders the detention center to mobilize. The information leads the group to the suburbs, near the water treatment station. Even so, Han is not in a hurry. He wants to see if Shang will do anything. He comments that such a narcissist would not miss the chance to promote himself at his expense. So he was already onto the plan. Lin is impressed with this talent of our hero. Even knowing everything from the start, she admits the boy acted very well. He realized it could be a trap, but stayed curious to see how Tang would appear. Suddenly, the officer gets an urgent call. There was a power outage at the prison, and all the supervillains escaped. Among them are prisoners who arrived from Meccan 2 days ago. Desperate, the officer orders a manhunt for the criminals throughout the city. Later, some thugs explain the chaos at the detention center. They say that is why they are there and ask the boss for another chance. All promise loyalty and claim they will follow him to the end. But with the police spread everywhere, Advisor Tang suspects something is wrong. One of the thugs comments that Han might be on a mission at the water treatment station. He says he heard this from a guard last night passing by the cell. Tang, who is not stupid, immediately understands they are trying to set a trap. The advisor asks if they should ignore the plan. Tang replies that if the target is there, that is enough. At the Major's son's house, a guard praises the brilliant attitude of the master, Lu Shang. He is very proud, and only waits for the right moment to appear at the end and take all the glory. However, Tang and Han have plans to turn the game around. Guys, that was part 1 of The System Boy. If you want more, don't forget to leave a comment. Also, drop a like while you're at it. That's it for today. See you next time.